Hello and welcome to the Haiku Pea Podcast. This time, Series 3, Episode 22. A podcast with Haiku and Senryu about social issues. My name is Patricia, and I thought it would be interesting to find out what's going on around the world, what's bothering us socially, and if there are any similarities. Of course, when I created the topic list for this year, COVID was not on my radar. Not surprisingly, that was a global theme, but there were others, and I'll not spoil the surprise, but I'll just tell you we have an awful lot in common, more than we have differences. Thank you to everyone who bought me a coffee since last time. I've not been out and about too much this month. Switzerland is currently one of the sick countries of Europe, so I'm doing as little mixing as possible. Instead of coffee, I'm going to treat myself to a book. It's On Writing by Stephen King. I got it from the library the other day, and I love it so much I want my own copy so I can scribble in the text. I'd recommend it as a writing manual, but it's also just a good read. And that's from someone who hasn't been able to read any of his books since I saw Carrie many moons ago. Whilst the rest of my family love a bit of horror, I'm too much of a scaredy cat. Also, a terrifically big thank you to James Young, who guest edited for me this time. We've done our best to keep politics out of it, but we're both British, so maybe we missed something that's obvious to someone else. Thanks, Jim. Let's not forget a big thank you to all of you who submitted. Whether your work was chosen or not, it was lovely to hear from you, and I hope we'll hear from you again. Remember that the topics for next year kick off with Spring and Autumn Kigo. I'm taking submissions from the 1st to the 20th of December for that, but at the moment Robert Horrobin is reading your submissions for the No Verbs topic. Deadline 1st of December. I know it's a challenge, it was meant to be, and there are more challenges to come in 2021. So please come along on the 7th of December and listen to the podcast because there'll be news. Without further ado, let's hear your submissions on social issues. I'll read the poem first and the author afterwards. But don't forget, you can always go to the website and read the verses yourself. I'd like to start the podcast with this verse from James Young. Not because he was the editor this month, but I'd like to comment on technique. By the radio, waiting for 4 aways, my dad with his fag. James Young. As I said to James, this might need a little bit of explanation, particularly for those of you who didn't grow up in the UK in a certain time period. First of all, when James and I use the word fag, I should probably tell you it's a colloquialism for cigarette. Now, when I and obviously James were young, there was something called the pools. It's something like a lottery in which you had to predict the results of football matches, and if you scored enough points, you'd win money. The sort of money that could make a real difference to your life. That's what James is referring to. Let's go back to the verse, though. Although the trip back to my childhood appealed to me, the point I wanted to make was that Jim has used a moment from his past, but he's written it in the present tense. A haiku expresses the moment, whether it's in the past or what's happening right in front of you, and it should be expressed in the present tense. So let's hear it again. By the radio, waiting for 4 aways, my dad with his fag. Continuing on. Saraswati goddess with a hole in her sock. Fragile spring. Demir, Demir. Cast-offs. Rummaging through old clothes at the shelter. Elaine Wilbert. Blackboard lessons. Eyes stare through gap in roof as dark clouds gather. Nearer Kashap. Winter wind, only bread and milk in her bag. Daniela Misso. Homeless girl in her sleeping bag, dead to the world. Peter Draper. Hungry and tired, walking the streets daily, feeling lost. Catherine E. Winnick. Bitter winds, cardboard flapping, alone at home. Linda L. Ludwig. Address unknown, a drifter finds solace in a cardboard box. Paul Callas. Streets now cleared of homelessness that some may walk untroubled. Ian Speed. Homeless, between him and the others, double social distance. Samo Kreutz. Harvest Moon, a beggar and the hope in his dog's eyes. M. Shane Pruitt. Without a roof, the biting wind of winter. Willie Boncaron. I'd just like to say a few words about Willie's verse. Did you hear the repetition of the W in all three lines? Did you find that it made the verse stronger? Let's hear it again. Without a roof, the biting wind of winter. Uncounted, discounted. Tent dwellers, food pickers. E. L. Blizzard. Refugee, so hard to learn to speak in future tense. Maya Daneva. Refugees washed up on a beach, lost dignity. Kim Russell. Sunless town, the rain burns a refugee's eyes. Srinivas S. Beachcombing, a scatter of refugees looking for a life. John Hawkhead. Rumbling louder than the evening storm, a refugee's belly. Hifsa Ashraf. His favourite boyhood racial slur. Ubbits. M. Kelly Peach. MLK Day, the lingering taste of black-eyed peas. Nika. Filthy little hands selling tissue boxes during school day. Riham El Ashri. Red light, small hands sell balloons, faded blossoms. Nina Singh. Happy Women's Day, he wishes wife, securing her veil, just so. Anjali Wahapandi. Now the next two verses speak of my awkward teenage years, and I bet there's some of you listening who could say the same. Construction site. Cacophony of wolf whistles. I flip the bird. Doris Lynch. Shy dog walker. How much she must see her feet. She shuns my morning. Mark Morris. Magdalene Laundry. Mammy's skinned knuckles scrubbing daddy's sins away. Mike Gallagher. I think Mike's verse is powerful even if you don't understand the history behind it. But maybe I should give you a quick snapshot. The Magdalene Laundries were run by religious convents in Ireland. Young, unmarried, pregnant women were often sent to work in them, and then the babies taken for adoption. The girls often had no choice. I'll put a link in the show notes if you'd like to know a little more. Anyway, to return to the verse. As you know if you've listened to the podcast, I'm not a great lover of adjectives. If you've got to use them, they really, really need to prove their worth. I think Mike's use of skinned when describing Mammy's knuckles is masterful. To me, anyway, those two lines reflect the prevailing thoughts of the time that there was something dirty about these young girls, their pregnancy, and all that went with it, and that their sins had to be paid for. Let me read it to you again. Magdalene Laundry. Mammy's skinned knuckles scrubbing daddy's sins away. Smashed beer bottles. The broken typewriter by the river. Oliver Leon Porter. To Cetus I pray, grant me the gene memories of Earth's singing whales. Carla Lynn Merrifield. Mayday. More birders than birds among the apple blossoms. Janice Doppler. Deforestation. Reflections missing from the lake. Ronald K. Craig. On the canyon wall, a weeping red hand, oil tankers rumble. Joan Barrett. Dark shadow over the rainforest. Lung cancer. Hannah Hulbert. Dark days, darker nights, can't see the wood for the trees which are now burning. Christopher Pays. Wind in the jungle, orange haze oversweeps souls in jeopardy. Richard Bailey. Hedgerows uprooted, silent spring. Dorothy Burrows. Decorating the death of a seabird, plastic rings. Pat Gia. Plastic bottle bobbing in the ocean joins a rubbish island. Rob McKinnon. Palimpsest. The small erasure of recycled glass. Lorraine A. Padden. Earth Day. The dog won't drop its fetch ball. Brad Bennett. Apocalypse Sky. They choose to look the other way. Christina Chin. My old school has more classrooms now, but no trees. S. Narayanan. Global warming overtaken by events. Mark Gilbert. Another day in lockdown. Fingerprints on the window. Laura Driscoll. Visited only by memories. Care home. Debbie and Tebby. Invincible without a thought for grandmother. B.A. France. Social distancing. Scrub jays gather in the jacaranda. Deborah P. Kolodji. Sore heart. Caress on the face. Nurse's Hand. Ava Drobner. A whole drawerful of homemade masks. Rain puddles the garden. Carrie Ann Turnell. Never-ending nightfall, death in solitude. COVID's autumn. Robert Kuzeda. COVID continues. Today you will not hug Gran. Perhaps tomorrow. Lekka Desai Morrison. Locked border. Our state gets to know itself. Giddy Nielsen Sweep. All Hallows Day. The child busy sketching on the mask. Pravat Kumar Padi. Yellow tape around the empty playground. Pandemic summer. Angela Terry. Nursery class. Rainbows outside the lines. Marilyn Ward. Virtual school. Galleries of students banned from chatting. Doug Lanzo. Flattening the curve. A Forsythia branch bends to the wind. J. Friedenberg. Social distance. Mallow leaves cup the rain. Pearl. Forced bloom. The corner diner reopens. Barbara Sabol. Solved social issues. A hermit wearing PJs 24/7. Wendy C. Bialek. I can see a little bit of humour in this one, so thanks Wendy for bringing me that in such trying times. One of the topics for next year will be to write haiku and senryu with humour. In fact, next month on the podcast, the 7th of December, Roger Watson's coming along to talk to us about just that. I hope you'll join us, because some of them are just laugh out loud funny. Neighbours' deck party. Political quarrelling. Thunder clouds rising. Michael Feel. Dawn. His throaty jalopy that wakes the neighbourhood. Ajay Agai Bar. Social networks. Liking her posts in succession. Bakhtiar Amini. Am I what I am on social media? Jitu Bengani. Don't you think Jitu's play on words in line 1 and 2 are effective? Have another listen. Am I what I am on social media? In the fermata between the tweets, truth lies. Robert Horobin. Networking with algorithms. Social dilemma. Zara Mugis. Cyberbullying. Hundreds of virtual strikes. Real pain. Cyril Soliman. Her scars in plain sight. Craters of the moon. Kristin Lindquist. Touching her bruises, she disappears out the door. Roberta Beach Jacobson. Her pandemic battle, not a viral one. She masks the bruises. Tracy Davidson. Bruises on her neck. Still her fault, she says. Richard Hargreaves. Am I the only one who cries? Jeff Brake. Rented view, on the neighbour's wall, sun shining. Jane Berg. Cathedral windows, the only stories she can read. Pat Davis. New faces move in, more kids dropped off at ballet, cycle shops appear. Fewer sirens blaze, car stereos are softer, teens in parks fade out. Avi. History records senseless events, slow learners. Wayne Kingston. Something being said on abandoned brick walls. Here I... Jack Galmitz. Jack, your half-finished sentence in line 3 certainly creates, for me, a sense of a person who feels that they're too small to matter. I can't help but think this is how many of us feel just at the moment. And certainly there are times when I feel like that, but then I think to myself, small steps. Small steps can lead to giant strides. Remember Neil Armstrong's misquoted quote, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." So, that's it for today. Thank you very, very much for writing and for coming along and for all the feedback you send me via email. It's much appreciated. Now, your deadline for the no verbs topic is coming up fast, the 1st of December. If you haven't got your submission in, you still just about have time. And there's lots of news coming up soon about happenings at the Poetry Pea, so if you haven't signed up for the mailing list, please go to the Poetry Pea website and sign up, or you might miss out on some exciting opportunities to grow your haiku experience. If you are one of the wonderful poets who submitted to the podcast, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because without your work, how would this edition even have been possible? And thank you very much for coming along and joining me. It's great to have your company, and I hope we'll be together again for the next podcast in a couple of weeks. And so until then, keep writing. If there's something missing or wrong in the show notes, just send me over an email and let me know so I can put it right. Ciao!